This is going to be such a fun-packed video. I tested the heck out of the Sigma 200mm f2, shooting in so many different scenarios, like sports, low light, portraits, nature, wildlife, events. So stick with me till the end, because it's really worth it. Hi friends, Dirk here, thanks so much for tuning in. And yes, this is the new Sigma 200mm f2. This white color is a very special anti-reflective coating, preventing that the inner tube expands when the lens is exposed to direct sunlight for a very long time. And that makes a lot of sense, because here you can see the S, and that means this is a lens from Sigma's sports lineup. Hi friends, I'm in the parking lot of the skater park here in Bonita Springs. I hope to get some action with the Sigma 200mm f2. I want to test the speed of the autofocus today. So what was really astonishing to me is how good the autofocus held up no matter how fast they were going, whether moving away from me or coming towards me. Everyone agreed to give it their best to create some amazing stunts for me. Didn't always work out, but they were pretty cool about it. Cool.
There we go.
Yep. The guys in the skater park were super welcoming, and they were happy to see a photographer or someone who has an interest in what they are doing in their free time. From 458 pictures, only 7 were out of focus, and I think that's because of me or the S5 Mark II. I don't think it's an issue with the lens. I'm impressed with this lens, and it really deserves the sports logo. It doesn't come as a surprise that already wide open at f2, the center sharpness is amazing, and also the corner sharpness is great. We don't have any distortions, we have barely any vignetting, and also the CAs are so well controlled. I'm at Coffee Land downtown Bonita Springs, and I couldn't be more excited because I'm meeting with Sophie. She's waiting tables until they close. This will be around 8 p.m. and by the time it's going to be pretty dark already. Thankfully, the lens that we're using for this shoot has a fast aperture of f2.
But I feel bad making you wait, so
that's fine.
I
do your thing.
Take photos now, and I can just finish that stuff after.
Then let's find a cool spot, a little bit closer to your coffee shop.
Yeah.
So we have this softer light,
Okay.
and then I'll wait until some cars are passing by, so we have this background blur.
Okay.
It was really dark, and I didn't want to raise the ISO crazy high, so I left it at 2000, and I shot with 1/25th of a second, and I couldn't believe my eyes looking through the viewfinder. The image looked stable, and then at home, when I saw the pictures on the screen, super sharp without any motion blur. And that was with the stabilization set to 1. I think the light was better when you were standing here. That's your spot. The thumbs in the pocket, that would be good. And then let me turn this on. This is on? Yeah. Good. This is cool.
Sure, thank you for these photos.
Of course. I stood on the side of the street and I thought, give it a try. And I held the camera, pressed the button, and this video was taken handheld at night. Stabilization in the camera set to standard, and here on the lens set to 1. The stabilization of this lens changes everything. As a former Canon shooter, I had a 70 to 200mm f2.8, even with much faster shutter speeds. I still had sometimes motion blur in my images, not with the Sigma, because it's so well stabilized. Now I want to find out if the Sigma 200mm f2 is good for nature and wildlife. That's why I'm here in Immokalee at Airboats and Alligators, and I'm trying to capture something really nice for you. Here I was taking pictures of little alligator babies, maybe 1 or 2 weeks old, and suddenly a very angry mom with surprisingly white teeth came out of the mud and told us that we were not welcome anymore. Photographing birds was not the easiest task, and I often felt that I needed a bit more reach, more than 200mm. Some of the outcome is pretty impressive, considering that I was on a boat that was moving and shaky, and by the way, I was not the only one who was struggling with that. The minimum focusing distance is 1.70 m, 5.6 feet. That means you can't get very close to your subject. This is not a macro lens. Still, when you have the right distance to your subject, you can create amazing images with nice, shallow depth of fields. Sometimes it really worked out well, and I felt that 200mm was the right focal length for the shot. But there were other times when I felt there was a shortcoming. Occasionally I was too close to a subject, and I couldn't focus because of that. And from time to time I was limited by the narrow angle of view, which is 12.3 degrees on this lens. And that didn't allow me to get everything I wanted in my frame, and I captured only a portion of that. Working with a 200mm prime lens, it is crucial to be able to create the right distance between you and your subject. But because nature is unpredictable, I felt that I would have been better off with a zoom lens, maybe a 70 to 300mm or 100 to 500mm. This would have been my ideal choice for nature and wildlife photography. But for a prime lens in this setting, I'm very happy with the outcome. I was invited at an event at the original Sugarshack in Bonita Springs. This was the perfect time to test the Bokeh of the Sigma 200mm f2. They had a live band there, Sun State Blues. Good vibes and great atmosphere. The sharpness is amazing, and the details you can capture with the Sigma 200mm f2 are simply stunning. When it comes to event photography, a 200mm prime lens would not be the first thing that jumps to mind, right? The more everyone was surprised with the outcome of my photo session. With a 200mm lens, you need a certain distance to your subject. And that also means that people don't necessarily notice you when you take pictures of them. That gives you great candid shots that truly focuses on them and only them and makes everyone else around them out of focus. No CA rings, beautiful rounded bokeh balls that on the side get a little bit cat-eye-ish, but the compression of this lens is outstanding. I love the bokeh. Sometimes I didn't have enough space. Here, for example, I had to shoot through a window. But I always made it work, and I couldn't be happier with the outcome of my event photo session. Thanks for inviting me, Sugarshack. I had a blast. Let's take a look at the build. So we get a total of 3 autofocus hold buttons. We have a very well positioned and smooth going focus ring. While having my hand here supporting the tripod collar, my thumb goes right to the focus ring, and this is so smooth. I created those images handheld with manual focus, and it was very easy to get my subject in focus and to get really beautiful sharp images. We have an aperture ring, and with this button we can decide whether it's clicky or silent. On the other side of the lens we have a lock button. This is an aperture lock button, so now we can't accidentally change aperture anymore. The next switch is for custom functions C1, C2 and off. The next switch is for the lens stabilization. We can leave it on off, but I left it by default on 1. If you have to pan, if you have to follow a subject, then you need to set it to 2. The next switch is a focus limiter, and that's really great for us because now you can decide whether you want the autofocus to work in the entire range or if you want to limit it to a certain area, especially great for sports photography. Because if you're focusing on a player on the field, the camera would not switch focus now if somebody walks by or collects balls from a tennis match. Now the focus would stick with the player where it's supposed to be. And then on top we have the AF/MF switch. Losing this black knob here allows you to change the orientation of the tripod collar, and you can turn it, and every 90 degrees it gives you a very satisfying click. And the turn is so smooth, it's even more smooth than some lenses focus ring. It's crazy. You can remove the tripod collar, but you have to unscrew these 4 screws here on the bottom. Amazing build quality, but what I'm missing is a place where you can drop in an ND filter here somewhere in the back. We don't have that, so if you want an ND filter, and with f2 you very likely need one, you have to attach a screw-on filter at the 105mm front filter size. Yes, that's pretty big, and this can be a little bit pricey. The lens hood. It's pretty big, and you can fix it by turning this screw knob. This is not necessarily my favorite style of lens hood. I prefer to set it, turn it, click it, but this style works very well, and throughout all my shootings it never got loose, it never shifted or changed position or fell off. The optical design is 19 elements in 14 groups and 11 rounded blades. And the weight of this lens is 1.8 kilogram. This sounds heavy on paper, but first of all, attached to a camera, it's really not that bad. You can hold it very well. Secondly, when you think about the DSLR lenses that we had before, the Canon 200mm f2, the Nikon 200mm f2, the weight was over 2.5, 2.9 kilograms, so much, much heavier. So this is a very well-balanced lens. Changing the focus from close to far or far to close, we have noticeable focus breathing. So who's this lens for, and what are my thoughts on the Sigma 200mm f2? This is a very capable lens, and I love the image quality coming from it. The handling was surprisingly easy, although it is a large lens, and in direct comparison it dwarfs the Lumix 24-105mm. It is for everyone who wants to have really amazing image quality, but has also enough space to create between the shooter and the subject. It is a prime lens and therefore has a limited use. Fashion, cars, sports, this is where I see the Sigma 200mm f2 shine, but only if you're making money with it. Because purely for your hobby, I think it's too expensive. This is not a sponsored review, although Sigma allowed me to borrow this lens for 3 weeks. I have to send it back, but Sigma has no saying in the outcome of my video. However, now I understand so much better the definition of the word separation anxiety. Although the Sigma 200mm f2 retails at $3,500, which is more than my first car, I still think it's fair priced. Why? The Nikon 200mm f2 DSLR lens and also the Canon retailed at $6,000. And you've seen the image quality this lens can produce. Therefore, I think it is well priced. It's just not for me, and I couldn't rectify purchasing this lens because I don't take this kind of pictures that get me paid, that this lens is capable of. It's great to have a really good telelens, but you definitely want to have a counter to that. A lens that you can have always on your camera body and that gets you through every shooting scenario in life. And if you want to know which lens I would recommend for that, you should watch this video here next. If you're in the market to buy any camera gear, please consider to use the affiliate links in the description below. It would certainly help the channel at no extra cost to you. Thanks so much for watching the video. I already bought the next lens, the Bokeh 35mm f1.8 Pro. Took a while until it was available for L-Mount cameras on Amazon. I'll be working on the next review. Till then, stay safe, stay tuned, and take care. Bye for now.